When I came in, he told me, he said, your best defense in this facility is your reputation. You don't need a pepper spray. You don't need all this stuff.
So people coming into a prison are already at a deficit. The one thing you don't want to do is to continue to create a structure and an environment that's going to continue to extract humanity out of them. Remind them and speak to the human that's in them and who they are.
We know what the challenges are. We know about the violations or the rap sheet or gang affiliation, but we have to find out, or we're intentional about finding out where's that grace. And that's a good starting point.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pull Up Podcast. This week, we have a couple special guests, but first, a couple announcements I want to share with you. Our hope is that at the first of the year, we'll be launching 2 new podcasts, the first of which, Reclaim Inside. You'll recognize these guys, my friends from episode 7. They'll be back to finish the 7 episodes of Reclaim Inside. We also hope to put up the GLA podcast. You've heard a lot about the leadership program that has been making a lot of progress in the state of Missouri and elsewhere. We plan to have a podcast behind that where we'll give more information about servant leadership and about how it changes culture in prison. Our goal is to level up the content that we're providing for leadership content, servant leadership content in prison, as well as spiritually formative content that helps you on your spiritual journey. The Pull Up was the start. It's our gritty start, meeting you where you're at, but we want to also help give you the tools. We hope to start doing that with more podcasts at the first of the year. 3 special guests with me this episode. Director of Adult Institutions for the Missouri Department of Corrections, Myles Strid. He is basically responsible for all the operations of 22 prisons in the state of Missouri, and then also the Deputy Division Director of the Missouri Department of Corrections, Earl. He is a zone director and responsible for multiple prisons in the state. I want to just take a minute and acknowledge the significance of their participation in this. These guys are responsible for huge parts of the Department of Corrections, prisons as a whole, all of the operations, all of the daily problems that happen within a prison. For them to sit down and be willing to discuss culture change, admit the fact that change is of need and is of benefit, for them to have a conversation of the role that we could play in that, leadership can play in that, is profound. So with that, a couple final thank yous. I want to thank our Daily Bread for the opportunity to do such an innovative thing like a podcast from inside of prisons. I want to thank JCCC and Jefftown in particular for making this such a professional podcast. Without their help and without their equipment and their knowledge, this would not be possible. I want to, in particular, thank the leadership at JCCC. You can see that we're sitting inside of a housing unit here. Without the trust, none of this would be possible. Everybody knows that within a prison, access is everything, and we just want to provide a good thing. So thank you. And now let's get on to the episode. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Pull Up Podcast. This is the season finale, and I'm here with Jonathan Irons. J.I.'s back from Atlanta, traveled up yesterday to be with us. And we have the Division of Adult Institutions for the Missouri Department of Corrections, Myles Strid, is with us. And we have the Deputy Division Director of the Missouri Department of Corrections, Earl. We're going to have a conversation about culture change and how they lead in the department and how they effectively lead culture change. So I was going to ask, so you as a director, I've heard Major Graham here talk about the difference between his staff that has come in OJT in the last 18 months and have learned kind of the new philosophy on the way in the door, as opposed to the difficulties of implementing change with leaders. How do you do that and do it in a way that builds trust and doesn't break it?
Well, I think through some of my zone leadership.
So one of the things that we're doing, I'll speak to Licking, South Central, and we mentioned culture early on. Throughout the state of Missouri, as you know, it's different cultures all over, different people, different backgrounds. We're getting different offender population in, and we throw them in, we manage them, but we have to figure out how to coexist. And so you're taking 2 different cultures and trying to make it work. And so at the leadership level, me and the admin teams, we're trying to figure that out. Like, it starts with trust. So I have to trust my administrators. to carry out directives, to be part of what we're doing, and letting them know that we know this thing works. Granted, it's going to be different at Potosi, South Central, wherever you go, because there are different cultures. But we've established a trust. And so now it's the next steps, bringing in the admin teams. Okay, this is what we're going to do. It's new. Let's give it some opportunity. Let's give it a good look and then readjust, because there's going to be readjustments because it's new. On the offender side as well, it's like, this is not our norm because I was conditioned to not like this person, and so we have to figure out how to effectively communicate with them and says, this is the direction we want to go. So they have to trust us in that we mean what we mean and we want to do it because they're leery of it. And so it's like bringing these two cultures together, trying to come up with the right formula at the right location to move forward in the direction we did here at JCCC. And it takes time. I often describe it as, trying to turn a big ship around in the ocean. It just takes time, and we have to trust the process. And so that's kind of where we are with some of the other sites. I know we're going to try to bring this thing to Potosi. They need to know what good looks like, South Central, and some of the other sites. But we have to establish not only trust between me and my admin teams, but between the admin teams and the institutional residents. And so that's kind of the formula, I think. And we'll see what that looks like. Is it going to be the same as JCCC? Probably not, but something similar.
Yeah, I want to quote our deputy director real quick because he's talking about turning the ship. And Travis Terry, our deputy director, he says it best. And he's told me this several times. He said, we don't got to get everybody rowing in the same direction. We just have to have one more rowing in the right direction than we got rowing in the wrong direction. And so that's the tipping point.
Yeah.
When people start to feel like it's okay, and you mentioned it with those OJTs coming in, where it's okay to do prison business this way. We got to get one more person.
Well, and how do you garner trust when the starting place of the culture is, I can't shake your hand, I can't know anything about you, right? I came to prison 2017. They were scared to even let me know they had children, much less, hey, I got a daughter like you. Like, in my mind, I'm 40 years old. I'm like, this is I have a daughter, but that same individual, to me, that's just like a handshake. So going into these different facilities, it's just, it's all about trust. And so on both sides, right, the culture has set a dynamic that destroyed trust. And so it's not your responsibility to build trust. It's not our responsibility to build trust, but we desire to build trust to change. And I think it's important for people to hear that directly from you guys, that it does take time and that it is happening, and that the conversations around changing culture directly means lives get better. We're not often given the time of, hey, there are things trying to be done, but you can't force true culture change. It has to be bought into.
So I have two thoughts on that. There's the how you do it, which I'll talk to in a minute. But the first thing you have to do is you got to prepare people for that conversation. And what I mean by that is, Josh Smith, he's with Fourth Purpose, taught me this. Our former director and pre-size, Trevor Foley, is a big believer of this. You can't walk up to staff and say, I want you to do X, Y, and Z different than you've always done it. And I want it to turn out great, but not take care of them. You've got to get your staff in a good place. And the first thing that means is you've got to figure out how to get staff in the door so that they have some relief. You can't have this officer that's been with us 15 years working mandatory overtime 7 days a week and expect them to want to do something differently they've already done. They just want to go home to their family. And so that's the first challenge that we have to tackle. We got to get more people in the door. And we've been doing a good job of that. I tell you, our recruiting department is doing amazing things. We're getting people in the door. Once you do that, you've got to support them. Staff has to know that they've got resources to go to. This is a tough job. And the job market right now, Jonathan, I mean, you can go out and get a job anywhere in this country right now and make a similar pay to what you would make in the Department of Corrections. But you are going to work for your money so much harder here.
Oh yeah. Wow.
So much harder. And so why do the people that do this job come in here and do that every day? Because there's a piece of them, and I believe this because I was an officer, there's a piece of them that cares about this stuff. They care about the outcomes in these facilities, and they care about their fellow staff. And so we've got to give them a place where they can do that openly, where they can care about each other, where they have time to spend with their families, where they feel supported by the department, where they feel safe coming into work. Now, that being said, because I can't say how we're going to get them to work on culture without saying we're going to do our part to support them and try to get them help. I think how you show people what good communication looks like is exactly what Bo's doing here at JCCC, what Bo is trying to do at Licking Correctional Center, at Bonne Terre Correctional Center, at Farmington Correctional Center. I still owe him an email to get him hooked up with some people at Chillicothe. I didn't forget. But you have to get them in a room together, as staff and offenders, and allow the conversation. You know, it's just like Bo said, how do you get two groups to communicate when they've been told for so long, you can't know anything about his children. You can't know anything about what he thinks about leadership. You can't shake his hand. Well, the only way to do that is to put leadership with them, like our wardens and deputy wardens, in a room and sit down and have a conversation. And I think what Bo does is a perfect avenue for that. I mean, you're bringing up a global leadership network video. You're looking at leadership in depth, listening to world-class speakers, and then you're talking about how those leadership principles apply in a correctional facility and how you could use them to do better and to make your lives better both at work or if you're living here incarcerated. And so I think it's two-part. You got to have your staff in a really good place. At least they got to feel supported and have what they need to come in and do their job and go home. And then you show them that it's okay to have those interactions. Most of our staff, and you know this, Bo, I think you know this. I do because I was an officer. They have men or women in these facilities that they care about that are incarcerated. All these staff do.
Yeah, you can't help it. You can't help but develop a relationship with someone.
So, but they have to be shown that there's certain ways you can interact that are professional, that are within the boundaries, but that also foster a good culture, you know, that foster trust. That starts at the top. So
on the other side, to be this close to staff as an inmate is frowned upon by the whole system. Like there are people that are going to call them, oh, I mean, these guys are rats. These guys are they're helping the man out. They're doing all, look at them. They up there shucking and jiving and all that. Like it's a risk to come over to this position to try to help staff change the culture. And there's a fear in that. Like, man, when's this thing going to change? When's this thing going to die? Because in the past, programs have come in, they've started, they've been celebrated, they've been great. And then somewhere down the line, it has developed enemies, and those enemies get into positions of powers, and there's all type of background noise in the background, and people start pulling blocks out the Jenga game. And then when the puzzle finally falls, look at those inmates, look at what they did. Like what do you say to them that are afraid to jump across the line? Because believe it or not, like you don't come into an environment like this and say, man, and you know what, I want to stay in prison for the rest of my life. Like everybody wants to eventually be in a position where they can go home and be free, but they need to develop habits. What do you say to them to bridge the gap to help them come over here and to this position, to this way of life, and to this ecosystem that you're building, which is phenomenal, by the way. Like this, for you to do this, like this isn't popular at all. Like there are people that are mad at you, probably have said some unsavory things. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking on the staff angle. You know what I'm saying? What do you say to these guys? Because I'm like you can't do none of this change without inmates at the ground level.
All right, so I'm going to give away an interview question real quick. So when I was interviewed for this position as the director, when I think this is an excellent question, you interview people all the time to ask this one. What's your biggest fear coming into this job? What were you afraid of when you walked in here and asked to sit down in this chair and interview for this position? And my biggest fear was failure. I said, my fear is I take this job and I fail at it. Because that's the end of it, right? It's my career. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about, Jonathan, right? Anything, any change, any any progress, anything that's worth having takes risk. And there's just always going to be risk. What I would say to that is you can't sit back and think, well, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z, or I don't want to be a part of culture change because someone could come down and tear it down 2 years from now. Well, sure, you're dang right they could. Absolutely they could, 100%.
That's real.
That's like, was it better to have loved than lost than never to have loved at all? It's the ages-old question, right? But that's it. I would say that any good years are worth the effort. You know, you got to have some faith in God first off, that He has an overall plan, and that He's putting the right people in place, and that everything happens for a reason, and that takes trust. And you just have to accept at the very beginning, just like I accept every morning, that there's going to be some bad things happen. I open those reports up; they're not going to be good. It's the first thing I do in the morning, right? But that doesn't take away all the good things that we're doing every single day. And so I think you have to look for those wins and the ways to make positive change. And to the people out there, if you're listening to this podcast and you think, well, and I've thought just like you. In fact, I thought of some people. There were some names that popped in my head and some programs that popped in my head that have been disassembled over the years. It's always a chance.
ITC was one of
A
it.
chance.
Yeah, that program was gutted from what it used to be.
It's thriving in
Yeah,
Atlanta still.
yes, and it's and from what I understand now, it's starting to grow back up, and it's starting to be invested in because you all are being intentional about it. Because like you can't have an honor wing without someone who has learned how to live in community. And I think programs like ITC are essential to helping grow the culture of a prison because it gives somebody an opportunity to learn character development, learn principles, learn a way to live and respect authority in an environment where it's safe. How you gonna teach somebody anger management, but you don't piss them off? You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to pull them off. Okay, now you're mad. Okay, now why are you mad? How can you handle this differently? What does your information tell you about? And like in order to be able to actually have lasting change, like you have to give someone an opportunity to practice habits. You can't put a person in a savage prison for 20 years and think they're going to get out and parole and live a life.
Yeah.
That's great. Like no, they have to have opportunities to develop habits that will take them out and help them be successful. Because when the honeymoon stops, when you get out of prison, you got to have something to fall back on. You got to have something like, you know what, I don't know what else to do, but I'm gonna do what I know how to do, and it's gonna keep me somewhere.
Well, and you have to have a place for fertile relational learning.
yes.
Well, you can't, all relational intelligence can't be risk, but everything in corrections and policy is in the transaction. It's in the moment. The trust is broke in the transaction. One of the GLS talks, they talk about trust being a water balloon and not a bank account. You don't get to go take a withdrawal from trust and put a little in, take a little out. When you break trust, you pop it like a water balloon and it's gone. And what you're describing is a great example of that. And so we go through it at the different facilities. It's how do you push change, but not push too hard so that you go into some of those tropes, if you will, that have come about before, where it's, oh, we know what that is, and we're just going to put this label on it from 30,000 feet, and then we put it in that space, and we know what that is. Well, that just gives me a way to stay in the norm and not push the culture change that we're talking about. So to me, the difference is in the relationship. Every leadership is relational. It's wholly relational. When you can follow policy and lead in relationship, right? It doesn't have to be all risk in the relationship. Good leaders are gonna, so you don't have to trust 1,800 offenders, but you can trust 30. And that's what happened here. And 30 changed 1,800.
Yeah, because what that does is it gives you the ability to have a meeting with people that are in a leadership position inside. Like there are people that are leaders in prison, not by appointment, but just by the way they carry themselves, who they know, and the things that they do, and grabbing them and collecting them and say, hey, look, there's a better way to do this. I don't know how to communicate this to the rest of the people. Can you do this? This is what we're doing. And you guys are capitalizing on that. Like, there's nowhere in this country where this is happening like this. And none of the prisons. Like, and there are so many people, like high profile celebrities, government officials, people outside of the country are seeing what's happening at this prison and are like, oh my God, they're seeing inmates being humanized, because everything that's been out there has been a narrative to say, hey man, be afraid of these people. Give us more money to keep these people contained. When in actuality, you're only gonna keep them contained for so long, because not everybody's got life without. Some of these people have parolable sentences. Do you want to set them up for success and put them in an environment where they can grow and change? Or do you want to set them up for fail and cause more victims? Like, you guys are actually doing that. Like, that's real.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the only thing we did is put the right people in place and then stand out of the way. You were open to it. No kidding. I'm serious. That's all it takes.
But you open to it though. Yeah. Like, there's some people.
You've had to change policy to allow some of these things to happen.
A few times.
There's some people that are, and I don't think that they're maliciously doing this, but they're just genuinely afraid to go down this road and explore it and see what's happening because of their training and what their experience is and what they know. They haven't had the time to get down and meet with other offenders on a personable level, which will come with time. It'll come. And the evidence is, the empirical evidence is going to be shown. You're going to see statistics fall, fights, violence, all the things that you normally look for. Y'all gonna see it.
I think the way people embrace change like this is a little at a time.
Yes.
And you start to see people realize that it's something really good. And maybe it doesn't have to be the whole prison right off the bat. Maybe, you know what? Not every staff person is ready for this type of environment.
No.
And not every offender is ready for this type of environment.
That don't make them bad, because they're not.
They just may not be there.
Yeah, they're not ready.
But if you look at, I'm going to give a shout out to Charleston Correctional Center and their Enhanced Honor Wing. It's off the books. Bowling Green Correctional Center, Dynamo, amazing. Vandalia, those women at Women's Eastern Reception and Diagnostic Correctional Center, sitting in the new Missouri Prison Transformation Project wing.
It's amazing, yeah.
Oh,
it's fabulous.
Got to go see them, man.
Moberly Correctional Center's Missouri Prison Transformation Project, off the charts. Farmington's Missouri Prison Transformation Project, the warden of Farmington just changed the colors. I like them better, actually. They're getting ready to blow it up at Farmington. South Central Correctional Center, Missouri Prison Transformation Wing, coming soon in the next 12 months. It just takes time, and it takes people to trust the process and patience.
How did you came in as, I was here before you got here, before you started working in DOC. I remember you as a blue shirt. You are the same way now as you were then. How did you sift through all of the training and all of the experiences that they gave you? I know you worked at AdSeg, you worked all these places to get to where you are now, and you were leading the charge.
Before you answer that, could I comment?
Get it, yeah.
So very perceptive for you to pick up on that. One of the things under his leadership that we talk about in our leadership walks, whether it's me coming in, walking with the wardens, deputy wardens, or admin from central office, we coming in doing these leadership walks, is meeting the offender population where they at, having these conversations. And the biggest thing, and this is what you're getting at, Jonathan, is where do we find the grace? Because we know what the challenges are. We know about the violations or the rap sheet or, gang affiliation, whatever, but we have to find out, or we're intentional about finding out where's that grace. And that's a good starting point, because, and we do it all the time, we go have conversations with the residents and everybody has a story, but we're intentional on listening to it and fixing it. A lot of things what I do when I come back from my site visits, I might get a note or I might get something from one of the residents. I'm following up with the wardens. Okay, let's check up on this, because it might be an issue. Something simple as shoes for medical or any surgical procedure that might need or want or whatever. Going that extra mile, because if we don't find that line where the grace is, what's it all for? And so my belief is that's where Myles is coming from. We know how to run prisons. We know what the population is like. But as humans, where do we find the grace? And we also do that with our staff people. Not everybody, staff members coming in as a ball of fire. or, problematic. They have stories too. They come from broken homes or poverty or whatever. And we're expecting for them to come in and deal with the offender population. And a lot of times they need for us to find the grace. Okay, you made a mistake, you know, recognize it, fix it, go to training, whatever. We'll show them grace and have them come back in. And um, so I'm proud of him in helping me recognize that, because working inside for so long, you tend to be one dimensional, come in and we go run this the best way we can and we're going to go home. But realizing nothing improves when you do that. And so finding that line, okay, this person has served 15 years or whatever. He's approachable. We having conversations. I know about his family. He gets visits every other week or whatever. Humanizing. I think you brought that up earlier, bro. This person is human. We know we're human. And so where's the line? We find grace. We might even, fracture a policy every now and then just for that grace. If a person needs to be, the custody level need to be lower, how do we do that? Do we go talk
flexibility?
To parole board? Yeah, talk to parole board,
Love
the
that
warrants or
word.
whatever.
Yeah.
Looking for different avenues. So, and that's what Myles has been about. And I kind of learned a lot under that leadership style.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Bo here. This week's episode is brought to you by Our Daily Bread Ministries. Our Daily Bread Ministries helps people grow closer in their relationship with God, become more like Jesus, and respond to God's Word through the conviction of the Holy Spirit. You can learn more about them and discover resources to help you experience the life-changing wisdom of the Bible every day at odbm.org if you have the internet. And if you are enjoying the Pull Up podcast, you can find more content like this by following the Our Daily Bread Ministries page right here on the Pando app and everywhere you get your podcasts. Now, back to the show. Again, we're talking about culture. How do you change this thing where the starting place is we can't shake hands? It involves a lot of grace to get to a place where we're willing to trust each other, like happens here, where the major can trust the residents of the housing unit with all of these different things. It didn't wake up there on Tuesday and on Wednesday it was just given. It was built over a period of time, like trust is.
This is what's interesting. You asked, how do you come in and get through all this training and all this indoctrination, and this is the type of change that you want to push. And I would challenge you with this. I would challenge you that I'm more old school than you would even think. So I want to talk about somebody real quick. My stepdad. So his name was Jim Myles. He worked at the Missouri State Prison. He retired after 14 years. He was retired from the Air Force. He's the one that got me a job here at this facility as a CO1. Now he's since passed away. But I will say this, when I came in, he told me, he said, your best defense in this facility is your reputation. You don't need a pepper spray. You don't need all this stuff. He said, your reputation. And he worked, for many years under that. Yeah. He was a transportation officer. And so I think in that, I would charge most people that have been with the department for a long time to really think about, especially at even the Missouri State Penitentiary, and even some of our other facilities been around for a long time. This isn't a new concept, right? Prison's gone through a very stressful time over the last decade and a half, through staffing shortages, through COVID-19, through political waves through this country that have changed the dynamics of facilities to where some of you can't even recognize what prison used to be. And so I would just say that some of this is getting back to how things should always have been. It's just, we know how to talk to people. And there's always, again, I think it's important to point out, there's always going to be bad things happen. It is a prison.
I guess
It's going to happen.
It goes back to the golden rule: treat people how you want to be treated.
For sure. Yeah.
That's the core.
Give them grace.
Yeah.
Well, Earl's got the grace. We're going to paint that on Earl's wall.
That's powerful, man.
Yeah.
How long you been working in DOC?
Tell your story. Do it. Because I love your story.
I'm not telling this story.
Tell the story.
Just give us a little bit.
Come on.
Just a little bit.
Give us
So you came from education?
No, I did not.
Oh,
Well, it was an education.
You know what?
in
I want
itself,
to tell him, but I'm not going to do it.
It was an education.
It was an
in
education.
itself.
I worked
about 10 years as a police officer in Columbia. And so I left PD and came to DOC. and started off at Fulton Reception Diagnostic Center. And I think that's where I met Myles and as an investigator. And so we investigated crimes within the prison and also staff corruption type stuff or whatever. So remember the day I met him, Myles, I'm gonna kind of brag on him here, is like he was I don't know if you've been promoted to sergeant.
I was
or
a
not.
sergeant
He
in the
was a
SEG
sergeant
unit,
yet,
yep.
but
He had that white crispy shirt on.
he
Yep,
had-
I
you know,
was
the
sergeant.
thing is, Jonathan, he just carried himself in a way that kind of not arrogant, but you know, somebody you would just recognize. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I'm a people person, and you know, I talk to everybody, whatever, and it's like people tend to steer clear of the investigator, but not him. You know, he was always welcome, and so we have these conversations, you know, about how to deal with certain situations or whatever, and just kind of hit it off. And it was again, it was something about him. And maybe the second year, he and I was talking. I said, you know what? You're just kidding, but not. I said, I'm gonna end up working for you one of these days. And he was like, oh no, you're not. No, you're not, or whatever. And this is where we are.
So
Bam, there it
So I'm
is.
gonna rat
Fortuitous.
Earl out a little bit. Two things. One, I'm going through my yearbook. He's gonna kill me for saying
Oh
this.
my goodness.
I'm going through my yearbook. So I'm talking like middle school yearbook. I'm flipping through the pages, reminiscing on old times, and I said, "What in the?" I says it. He was my school resource officer.
Wow.
True story.
He sure
True
was.
story.
So one thing I appreciate. So when I was in the segregation unit as a sergeant, and I'll tell you what, all my officers were this way. I was trying to talk this guy to get in his food tray. He held his food port. He wasn't going to give his food tray back. And you'd think there's going to be some big bad prison story, right? It's not. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I'm going to get this tray back. I'm not going to fight him for it. Like, we're going to talk this out. He's going to give it back to me. This is crazy. I don't need all this food port. I'm not doing the use of force in this guy. I think I tried for, it's at least 45 minutes. At least. Here come this smug guy over here, walking in as the investigator. He said, well, you want the food tray back? I said, yeah. I said, you ain't. I said, I bet you $20. You ain't got, I have worked and worked. He's not giving it back. He goes in there and gets it back in like 10 seconds. I still to this day don't know what he said to him. I think he slipped him a $20 bill or something. But
What you tell him, man? Tell her to put it out there. What you do?
I showed him some grace. I said, hey, man, we just need to end this so you can get on with your day. Give us a food tray. You want an extra cookie, we can work that, whatever the case may be. And he just listened, showed him some grace, and he gave it back. You know, it probably helped me not having a uniform on, you know, the ability to talk or whatever. But yeah, actually, I got lucky. So he
I don't think it was luck, man. I think I honestly think, because I've been in ad seg, man. I've been in 8 house. I was in 8 house. It was so cold. One year I had ice in my toilet. You know, and I had a guy who was flooding the wall, had little doodle figurines floating up and down the wall because he flooded. Like, I've been in some of the most crazy environments. But one thing I have noticed with all of that, it's like every one of those guys that are the hardest cases inside had their staff member that could come in and talk them down off of a ledge by their approach. And they were always calm, they were always respectful, and they had a rapport. Like, if you ain't got a rapport with the guys that you're trying to lead and trying to help, like, you're going to be running into walls and conflict all the time. Most of these guys, they come from a lifestyle. Like, I'm talking with a lot of juveniles now inside the juvenile system in different states and everything. And there's a common thing, man. Father's not present. They come from difficulty. Nobody understood them. Extreme poverty. Like, there's a list of things that are happening. Like, so people coming into a prison are already at a deficit. It's like the one thing you don't want to do is to continue to create a structure and an environment that's going to continue to extract humanity out of them. Like, you want to do is like, no, remind them and speak to the human that's in them and who they are. And like, that's what you did. And you did it in a way where we're used to it. He's probably saw you in the staff uniform and was like, man, you just like the rest of them. Right? I ain't trying to deal with you. No, you just like them. You gonna harass me and write me up later on down the road without knowing it. Like, sometimes staff gets assaulted because of what some other staff member has done. And then you came in with different civilian clothes. Like, that's how you're supposed to do it. I think nothing was wrong with neither one of your approaches.
And you gave grace. Heard bad behavior described as an unskilled expression of an unmet need, which requires grace. Captain Davison talks so he told the story of how he deals with somebody who's in an aggressive state, and how as long as it's only bluster, it's not a threat. Even though as a CO, or in that instance, you might hear the unskilled expression as a threat, or maybe something that it isn't. Um, like you said, you have to meet them where they are, right? And that requires that grace. So I think away from the transaction, right? How do you lead in a way that allows for that grace, where they know they're going to get it, right? Because there's always going to be overcorrections to things. You open the door, you're going to have the wrong people go through it. You've seen that in the transformation wings and different things where it hasn't been incentive based. How do you allow those things to happen and not weaponize those things to do, like we talked about earlier, let them destroy a good thing?
Completely honestly, I think that you count on the leadership that you have at these facilities. I can tell you right now, there's not a warden in this state that I don't have complete faith in. Now, they face different challenges. They had different strains on their day. Running these prisons takes a piece of them that they never get back. I can guarantee you. But what I will say is the people that we got in place right now are some incredible leaders. It's just going to take them some time to continue to make traction. And so that's the only way you move past bad things happening to good programs. You've got to have people in place that understand it's okay for bad things sometimes to happen. Not that we want them. We're going to work our butt off to prevent them. But if they happen, they're going to be a bump in the road. We're just going to keep on moving. And I mean, it's no different than what we do in our communities. When things happen in the community and they're not good, we come together. This is a community. I mean, it's just a change in viewpoint. But again, all the things I listed off, the visiting improvements that we're making and the different our normalization wings that we're building, I'll put them all into that group.
I like that
They're making a
normalization coming up.
difference.
Normalization. That is an interesting concept.
It is. Here's the thing with it, and this I believe this. If you want to be successful at getting men and women back out into the community, you've got to change the way the community views prison. Period.
Changing the
Even if
narrative.
you're not doing it to do something nice for the prisoners. You can't have men living in a facility that is viewed as a violent, dirty, dangerous place for 30 years and expect people to want them to come live next door to you. Now, if the community sees them living in a place that's got similar furnishings to their place, that's got similar resources like mental health and medical to what they've got, that has similar access to food and to family and to Christmas trees.
Right. A real Christmas tree, by the way.
These things start to change that dynamic, and they change the stigma around incarceration. So maybe you're not quite so terrified to have somebody move out of a facility like this and live next door to you. That's what it's all about. That's the whole principle of normalization. And then, hey, it makes a better living environment too. No one wants to live in a place that feels like an institution or a facility.
And a better working environment.
And it's a much better working environment. And so that's what it's all about.
You know, you were talking about, just normalizing things and just like showcasing like all of this and showing that. The Puppy for Parole program is known nationwide.
It's phenomenal.
When I would tell people, like when they would see me training dogs, like I have a professional dog training business, and it's very successful. When I would tell people like, hey, I was in prison, they're like, oh, you in prison? It's like, yeah, wrongfully convicted. Oh, okay. I said, but I was in a Puppies for Parole program. Oh, I heard about that. Like they get so excited when I tell them about that and just all the things. So what you guys are doing out showcasing that, you're absolutely right. They'll see like, oh man, they were in this program, they were in that activity. This is the wing that they're in, and like they're seeing what they're doing. Like the somebody, I don't know who wrote the article. I forgot who wrote the article, but somebody, Gary Campbell was in it. Somebody asked me, because I talk about Gary, I talked about him in my book. And they asked me, it's like, hey, is that your Gary Campbell that you talk about in your book that you grew up with? I'm like, yeah, that's him. Like right here in Jeff City, like they're actually seeing it and talking about it in the community out here in mass numbers, which is really, really good.
I think it truly matters what people view prison as. That is going to change a lot of men's success getting. I mean, some people can just be a self-starter and get out in the community, but not everyone has something to fall back on, like we talked about earlier. Some guys are getting out and it's feet on the ground trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
They're starting off behind when everyone thinks that this is a place of drugs and danger and filth. But I truly believe too that it matters what the community perceives our staff as. I truly think that matters. You know, it's twofold. Both populations had to be in a good place, not only in the community's viewpoint, but in their own inside this facility, for us to improve prison culture.
And unfortunately, it's negative on both sides. Like, corrections officers are never the heroes in the movie. You know, they're usually the villain.
They respond to more medical emergencies and save more lives than a lot of first responders on the streets. And that's not putting first responders down by any means, but it's
just like offenders,
This talks about the
we
environment.
define them by the bottom 10%.
That's right.
Or the bottom 5%.
That's right.
Or the 5 instances of the worst things where these things are, you know, talked about for weeks and months on end, but you don't talk about those good things. You don't talk about the times that you saw the lives saved. And I mean, I saw it. I saw people get CPR for a half hour and they were alive 4 days later. And anybody who's given CPR, you give CPR for a half hour and you probably got broken ribs, but you're alive. But you know, the effort that goes into it. And I mean, I've seen that. And, you know, we maybe have seen the dehumanizing side and seen it from a perspective that allowed us to then dehumanize and be part of the problem. And I think what I've seen here and, you know, what we hope to continue is how do you meet in the middle? How do we see these things as different? We don't just need to see the offender as different or the prison is different. How do we actually see these as correctional facilities? How do we get the communities to see that? And how do we get leaders to say, I run a correctional facility, right? That is so far down the path of safety and security, right? Safety and security isn't much involved in, that's like corrections is past the safety and security element, but it starts in the community. It starts with the staff. It starts with how the residents live. So,
well, and I can tell you this one thing, and hats off to our comms team at Central Office, Miss Podgeman. She does an incredible job. But I know most people listening to this podcast may not have access to Facebook. And if you do,
talk to Gary Campbell.
I couldn't help it.
We got other issues.
So, but what I will say, I couldn't help it. Come on. But what I will say is this: have your family get on there and look at what's going on around the state. Have them spread the good news and the programs and the successes that we're sharing on a daily basis and that each individual site is sharing on a daily basis, because we're out there pushing it. Bo's out there pushing this news. Jonathan's out there pushing this news.
On a national level.
Hey, I mean, Josh Smith, the Deputy Director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, he's out there pushing it. Go to their sites, look at their Facebook pages, look at their Twitter. Look, now I'm not a social media person.
You know Michael Jordan knows about all this stuff that y'all doing there?
There you go.
The Michael Jordan, he know about it.
Y'all seen that documentary on him too. That's pretty good stuff. But I mean, seriously, go out there and share the good news. There is incredible things going on in the Missouri Department of Corrections and nationwide. But to destigmatize incarceration, to highlight those staff that are doing amazing things, because we put both up, and the residents that are doing incredible things, we all got to work to do it. And that's everybody in the community. I mean, look, we were in the top 10 of Netflix for something we've been doing for 2 decades, quilters. Top 10. That's been going on a long time, but it took somebody to recognize it and put it out there in front of everyone to really highlight the amazing work that we do in restorative justice and what we're actually giving back.
How do you get back to humanity? How do you get to the path of humanity? That is what people want to see. They want to see things that stoke the fires of happiness and things that make them feel good, and seeing somebody change and the underdog winning and getting some success and making progress. Like, there's so many people out there that want to see an ex-felon get out, get a job, have a family, and have a responsible life. They ain't got to change the world, but just to live. Like, I'm talking about by the mass numbers. There's so many different organizations nationwide that are pushing before it. Organizations that never hired felons, they're hiring them now. I could name them. I could spend an hour naming off all of them in Georgia. Like they're just ready for that. And like what you guys are doing, you're also helping the economy because you're getting people out that can get out and can contribute to taxes because they're paying their taxes, they're working a job and paying their taxes versus sucking up taxes being here. Like all this money that we're spending on prisons, we should be spending more money on education and stuff like that, but we can't because of where we are. But we're moving in a better direction, and it starts by doing that. Like we have roads that need to be rebuilt, we have infrastructure that needs to be completely refurbished. All these electrician jobs that needs to be done. These guys can get out and work and are wanting to work. Like I have 2 felons working for me right now. One of them is my foreman, my lead foreman. He works harder than anybody. You know why? He tells me I got something to prove. I know I made mistakes. I made bad decisions in my life. I want to do things differently. I want to make my family proud. I want to do that.
So I think what I want to highlight here is a couple things. Change is incremental. We hear it here. With all of the successes of Two House and GLA, I've heard the term T-shirt culture thrown around. People want to point out what you're not doing or what you could be doing better. It's easy to tune into the bad and not highlight the positives, especially like you said, turning the Titanic around in a creek takes time and is a huge lift and happens in small bits. I want to thank you both for sitting with us. I want to wrap up here. I know you guys are busy, but
Appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for having us.
And so with that, everybody, we're going to call that a wrap. We really appreciate Director Strid and Director Dye joining us. I really appreciate J.I. joining us from Atlanta. This is the season finale of the Pull-Up, but stay tuned. We're looking at traveling a lot for the next season. We're in communications with people in New Mexico, Texas, Florida, and Virginia as possible places to record early next year. So stay tuned. And that about wraps it up for this week. So thanks again for joining us. This week's episode was brought to you by our Daily Bread Ministries, helping you experience the life-changing wisdom of the Bible every day. And don't forget about it. We're serious. If you know someone who's a good example of what leadership and positive influence looks like inside of prison, let us know, and we might pull up on you. You can contact us through our Daily Bread Ministries or reach out to me directly, and we will connect with your facility and see if we can set up a visit. Until then, I want to thank this week's guests, and finally, a special thanks to those who work behind the scenes to make this podcast possible. Missouri Department of Corrections, Jefferson City Correctional Center, Warden Kelly Morris, the guys at Jefftown, who, by the way, helped capture this conversation you're hearing on this podcast while serving time themselves, doing some really incredible work inside. And my friends at Golden Eagle Creative, who produce it all. We'll see you right here at the same time in 2 weeks.